Hi there, Ben Mankiewicz with you. Thanks for watching TCM and more of tonight's lineup of conspiratorial political thrillers. We're doing this every Wednesday night in November. Up next, a top-notch, ahead-of-its-time political thriller with a reputation that has grown by leaps and bounds since its initial release. From United Artists in 1962, The Manchurian Candidate. Film opens in 1952 during the Korean War, where we're briefly introduced to a platoon of American soldiers led by an officer, Bennett Marco, played by Frank Sinatra, and Staff Sergeant Raymond Shaw, that's Lawrence Harvey. After a brief scene inside a brothel, the platoon is in combat where they're ambushed and captured. The psychological torture they experience as prisoners of war is what fuels The Manchurian Candidate. Movie hit theaters on October 24th, 1962, putting it squarely in the middle of the most dramatic era of the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Over 13 days during the back half of October, the world sat on the brink of nuclear annihilation after the United States learned that the Soviet Union was installing atomic warheads in Cuba just 90 miles from the U.S. coast. Frank Sinatra had been a fan of Richard Condon's 1959 novel, also called The Manchurian Candidate, and Frank used his considerable clout to convince United Artists to adapt it into a film. UA President Arthur Krim objected, though, calling the book's subject matter too irresponsible and incendiary to make into a movie. Sinatra then pulled a Frank Sinatra move. He went over Krim's head, way over his head. Frank called in a favor from his friend, President John Kennedy. When Sinatra mentioned his plans, JFK, who also loved the book, seemed less concerned with the irresponsible and incendiary part and more into talking about who could possibly play the film's pivotal role. Not Bennett Marco, not Raymond Shaw, but Shaw's diabolical and scandalously manipulative mother. John Frankenheimer had the answer. Frankenheimer was the director. Frankenheimer said Angela Lansbury, who earned an Oscar nomination for her brilliant performance. After getting the president's blessing, United Artists went ahead with the project. Here it is from 1962, one of cinema's defining political thrillers, also with Janet Leigh in one of her finest performances, as well as similarly stellar work from James Gregory, The Manchurian Candidate. Though movie critics mostly praised the film, The Manchurian Candidate did not fare well at the box office. After its initial run, the film essentially vanished and wasn't given a second run in theaters. That sparked a conspiracy theory about the film itself. Since the plot of The Manchurian Candidate so closely mirrored real-life events, story developed that Frank Sinatra had the film locked away after the assassination of his friend, President Kennedy. Screenwriter George Axelrod, who co-produced the movie along with Sinatra and director John Frankenheimer, later backed up the theory. However, others have offered a more plausible, far less gripping explanation that a series of lawsuits surrounding the film's complicated profit-sharing structure kept it out of theaters for a couple of decades. United Artists finally sanctioned and authorized re-release to theaters in 1988, and a home video release followed a few months after that. Director Jonathan Demme effectively remade the film in 2004 with Denzel Washington as Ben Marco, Liev Schreiber as Raymond Shaw, and Meryl Streep as Shaw's treacherous mother. Coming up, a gripping political conspiracy thriller with lower international stakes, but every bit as much tension. John Travolta is a sound engineer who accidentally records evidence of the murder of Pennsylvania's governor. Directed by Brian De Palma, Blowout is next on Turner Classic Movies.
Next on TCM, Blowout, then Executive Action, and later Bengal Tiger. TCM can change our stripes tonight.